Level 0. Open your fridge right now and there's a decent chance you're holding a plant that gave up its own weapon. Most hot pepper species produce a group of molecules called capsaicinoids, built specifically to make mammals think twice about eating them. The bell pepper is the outlier, carrying mutations in the PUN1 locus that disrupt the machinery needed to make capsaicin. The weapon didn't disappear. The pepper just lost the recipe. That earns it 0 Scoville heat units. The scale used to estimate a pepper's pungency, first through human taste panels in 1912, developed by a pharmacist named Wilbur Scoville, and now mostly through precise lab chemistry. Capsaicin itself wasn't even isolated as a pure compound until 1846, decades after peppers had already spread across the globe on trade routes, and chemists later grouped it into a broader family called vanilloids, compounds that share a similar molecular backbone despite wildly different effects on the body. 0 isn't the absence of a story, it's the starting line, because capsaicin is still out there, building toward numbers that stop sounding like cooking and start sounding dangerous. The next pepper on this list barely counts as spicy by the standards we're about to reach, but it's already enough to completely fool your nervous system. Level 1. A jalapeno barely registers next to what's coming, landing between 2,500 and 8,000 SHU. That range exists because heat isn't fixed. Sunlight, soil stress, even watering schedules can shift one variety's score by thousands of units, which is why one jalapeno can feel mild while the next from the same bag makes your eyes water. What's happening is capsaicin locking onto a receptor called TRPV1, the same one your skin uses to flag real heat above 43 degrees Celsius. Black pepper, oddly, uses a completely different receptor for its bite, which is part of why chili heat and peppercorn heat feel so different, even though both get called spicy. The pepper isn't raising your temperature. Your nervous system simply reads the chemical signal as heat. Sweat, flushed skin, a racing pulse. Your body reacts like it touched a stove, and none of it was ever actually burning. Even a ripe jalapeno, smoked and dried, becomes something entirely different on store shelves, a chipotle. Proof that heat alone isn't the whole story of how these peppers get used. If a receptor gets fooled this easily by a mild pepper, what happens once breeders start scaling that trick up on purpose? Level 2. Cayenne and Serrano push toward 50,000 SHU, roughly 6 times hotter than a jalapeno at its peak. Cayenne actually takes its name from Cayenne, French Guiana, one of the ports where European traders first encountered the pepper centuries ago, while Serrano literally means from the mountains, named for the highland regions of Mexico where it's traditionally grown and used fresh in salsas rather than dried. Near this range, capsaicin stops being just a kitchen ingredient and starts overlapping with substances used specifically because they're irritants. Even the mild afterglow you feel from a dash of cayenne powder is the exact same TRPV1 trick from level 1, just turned up. Capsaicin activates pain receptors rather than heating tissue the way a flame does. Your body doesn't seem to care. Cortisol and adrenaline can surge as if you've encountered a real threat, even though nothing is actually burning. And that surge is measurable in blood work, not just imagined. That gap between what your nerves report and what's actually happening keeps widening, because the next tier of peppers was bred specifically to push it past comfortably. Level 3. Habaneros and Thai chilies climb into the 100,000 to 350,000 SHU range, a jump steep enough that comparing them to a jalapeno stops being useful. The Thai chili even carries a local nickname, Prik Kainu, which roughly translates to mouse-dropping chili, a reference to its tiny size rather than its enormous heat. Concentration runs high enough that bare-handed contact alone can cause a strong burning sensation on your skin. No mouth involved, which is why chefs reach for gloves before they reach for the pepper. Water won't help either, since capsaicin is oil-soluble, not water-soluble, which is why milk and fat cut the burn far faster than a glass of water ever will. None of this heat exists for our benefit. The plant built it to stop mammals from eating its seeds, since birds, which can swallow and spread the seeds intact, are largely insensitive to capsaicin's burning effects. The habanero itself likely originated in the Amazon, not Cuba, despite a name that translates to from Havana, a mix-up that stuck for centuries, and its familiar orange color comes from carotenoids, the same pigment family responsible for the color of carrots. We're eating a warning label and calling it dinner. For decades, this felt like the natural ceiling for how hot a pepper could get. Then one lab decided the ceiling was a suggestion. Level 4. In 1994, a breeder named Frank Garcia in California released the Red Savina habanero, measured up to 577,000 SHU, holding the Guinness World Record for hottest pepper for 12 straight years. Nobody stumbled onto it in the wild. It came from generation after generation of deliberate crossbreeding, aimed at pushing capsaicin production past whatever nature had managed alone. And that changed the game. Once growers proved heat could be engineered instead of discovered, a competitive hobby sprang up almost overnight, breeders worldwide chasing the same number, whoever could push it highest. Around this same period, testing itself started shifting away from human tasters entirely toward a lab method called high-performance liquid chromatography, which measures capsaicinoid content directly instead of relying on someone's tongue. The red Savina held its crown for 12 years, but records exist to fall, and the next one didn't just beat it. It rewrote what people assumed a pepper was even capable of. Level 5. In 2007, the Butcholokia, known as the ghost pepper, became the first pepper ever measured above 1 million SHU, nearly doubling the previous record in a single jump. Roughly triple the strength of habaneros, people already found unbearable. Guinness typically requires several independent samples tested and averaged before certifying a new record, which is part of why the process from harvest to official title can take months. It comes from northeast India, a region that also happens to grow some of the world's hottest naturally occurring chilies without any deliberate breeding program behind them at all. And genetic studies later revealed it's a natural hybrid between two separate pepper species, Capsicum chinense and Capsicum frutescens. Up here, the question stops being whether a pepper hurts. It becomes what the human body does when a pain signal refuses to let go. Repeated exposure at this level can actually desensitize the same TRPV1 receptors over time, which is part of why frequent chili eaters genuinely build up tolerance rather than just imagining it. Farmers in that region grew this pepper for generations before any lab confirmed its numbers, smearing crushed pods onto fences to keep wild elephants off crops. The important part is the irritant sensation on sensitive tissue, something an animal that size will go well out of its way to avoid. Once a pepper crossed the million mark, the question changed. How much further could breeders push it? Level 6. By 2011, the Trinidad Scorpion Butch T measured as high as 1,463,700 SHU. Named partly after grower Butch Taylor, who helped stabilize the strain. Its shape starting to match the reputation, with a tail that curled like a stinger. Scientists still debate whether shape and heat are actually connected, but the timing lined up too well to ignore. Peppers in this scorpion family are all bred and grown on the island of Trinidad, a small stretch of land that ended up producing more record-breaking heat per square mile than almost anywhere else on Earth. Emergency room visits linked to extreme pepper consumption here have included severe vomiting, and in rare cases, esophageal tears from how violently the body reacted. That doesn't make the pepper automatically lethal. It means the reaction can turn dangerous once extreme pain, vomiting, and swings in blood pressure start piling up on top of each other. And the 2 million mark was already closer than anyone realized. Level 7. The Trinidad Moruga Scorpion, named for the Moruga region where it's traditionally grown, a rural district on the island's southern coast known for small family farms rather than industrial agriculture, claimed the record in 2012 at 2,009,231 SHU, the first pepper confirmed above 2 million. A sample this concentrated has to be handled with far more care than anything you'd normally encounter in a kitchen, especially when researchers dilute it for testing. That image is hard to shake. A vegetable that needs lab-grade caution just to measure sounds made up, except the number is public record. Modern testing typically dilutes a sample in a sugar and alcohol solution until a taste panel or a chemical sensor can no longer detect any heat at all. And that dilution ratio becomes the Scoville number itself. Tasters who've handled the Moruga Scorpion often describe a brief window of genuine fruity flavor before the heat fully lands, a delay that makes the eventual burn feel even more disorienting. That leftover disbelief kept breeders pushing further, chasing an answer nobody had really asked out loud yet. How much heat can a living plant actually hold? That answer showed up the following year from a name that would own this competition for a decade. Level 8. The Carolina Reaper, bred by Ed Curry in South Carolina through his company Puckerbutt Pepper Company and certified by Guinness in 2013, averaged 2,200,000 SHU, with peak samples reaching 2,480,000 SHU. Its wrinkled, bumpy skin and thin, curling tail became almost as recognizable as the heat itself, making it one of the few peppers people can identify on sight. And it went on to headline countless competitive eating challenges online, where the goal usually isn't finishing the pepper, but simply surviving the next few minutes after swallowing it. It held the world record for a full decade, becoming the pepper most people actually recognize, the one behind viral eating challenges and hospital headlines alike. Curry built this on purpose, crossing a ghost pepper with a red habanero, and treating capsaicin output like an engineering spec, rather than a happy accident of farming, a process that reportedly took years of controlled crosses before the Reaper's genetics stabilized. A 2018 medical report documented a man developing thunderclap headaches after eating one, a rare vascular reaction serious enough for emergency brain imaging. 10 years is a long reign for any record. Then, in 2023, the man who created the Reaper replaced it. Level 9. Pepper X, also bred by Curry, was certified in 2023 at 2,693,000 SHU after independent verification through Winthrop University, the same lab that has tested several of Curry's previous record-breaking peppers. Guinness World Records currently recognizes it as the hottest pepper on the planet. Curry had actually been quietly growing and using it in a limited hot sauce release years before the official certification ever came through. Developing it took over a decade of selective breeding, and testers reported cramping and physical distress lasting hours, well past the usual burn and fade of milder chilies. At this point, calling it food starts to feel generous. We're at the edge of what a plant's own chemistry can produce, refined by human hands toward a target nature never aimed for. Pepper X isn't the finish line. It's proof that the finish line keeps moving, and someone somewhere is already growing whatever comes next.